Another interesting method to do a literature review is the Tccm review protocol, which means theory, context, characteristics, and methodology review protocol. The idea here is that the Tccm review protocol aims to provide answers to the following questions. What theories have been used in the studies or in the literature? In what contexts or industries and countries have the studies and the literature been investigated? What independent, dependent, and mediating and moderating variables have been studied, which are the characteristics? And finally, what methods have been applied to the study on a phenomena? The first step is to do a selection of the most influential journals, considering any journal with an ABS or Association of Business Schools or French CNRS ranking of at least 2, and an impact factor greater than 2, which means that you have to select the best journals having 2 ranking or an impact factor greater than 2. For example, marketing, these are naturally journals like Journal of Marketing, Journal of Marketing Research, Marketing Science, Management Science, Journal of Consumer Research, Journal of Consumer Psychology, Journal of the Academy of Marketing Science, International Journal of Research and Marketing, Journal of Retailing, Journal of Service Research, Journal of Business Research, European Journal of Marketing, and so on. The second step is in accordance with the topic of the review, specification of the set of search terms of the identification of relevant articles in the research domain has to be done from multiple databases, for example, Web of Science, Google Scholar, EBSCO, GSTOR, Science Direct, Emerald. In this step, you have to limit the search to a period. For example, over the last 30 years, which is a very long period or shorter periods. This depends naturally on the number of articles having been published. If a lot of articles have been published, it makes sense to read only over the last 5 to 10 years. If there are few articles, it makes sense to extend the period. For example, here, we did it in an article about literature review about loyalty programs published in Journal of Business Research, with terms like frequent flyer program and related terms such as loyalty card, loyalty program, reward program, customer loyalty program, store loyalty program, frequent program, loyalty card, loyalty scheme, customer reward, frequent flyer program, frequent buyer program, and so on, in order to identify relevant papers. And then you have a list of articles. Here is a sample of the publications on loyalty programs. So it's an example. The sample we found was published mainly in Journal of Retailing and Consumer Services, namely 24 articles, 80%. Then International Journal of Retail and Distribution Management, 10 or almost 11%. Journal of Marketing Research, 7.6%. European Journal of Marketing, 7%. Journal of Service Marketing, 6%. International Journal of Research and Marketing, 5%, and so on. So we see in total, we found something like 130 papers published on the topic of loyalty programs. So this is the first table, which is generated by this Tccm protocol. The second table is then the main table about theories which are used. For example, in our research on loyalty programs, we identified mainly articles done with social identity theory, social comparison theory, prospect theory, behavioral learning theory, social exchange theory, customer equity theory, and there's a large amount of articles which have found other more marginal theory. You can see here the number of articles and the exemplary studies which we have found for that. Yeah, most theories are based on social exchange theory and social identity theory, social comparison theories, which are social science theories. So it makes sense if you want to investigate further on loyalty programs to use these theories because they're well established. But if you want to do a contribution, it makes also sense to use new theories that have not been really investigated or used in order to do main contribution to the domain. Then in the C category, characteristics, we established a list of studies having done in different sectors. So most of the articles were published in retailing, mainly offline retailing, and small part of online retailing, giving actually an indication that future research should be done in online retailing. Then we see that most studies have been done in the airline sector, hotel sector, and marginally coffee shops and other sectors. In other service industries, in product industries which were not explicitly stated. So we can see here that it makes absolutely sense to do other studies in the hospitality sector, where few studies have been done, online retailing, but also in other sectors which have not been investigated enough. In terms of countries, most studies have been done in the United States and also Europe. But you can see that in Asia, very few studies have been done, which shows that there's a research gap and future research should be done in other countries or other continents than US and Europe, mainly in emerging countries such as Asia. Here you can see the characteristics. So we can see the different variables that have been analyzed for loyalty program research. So mostly perceived value, is with having investigated perceived value of loyalty programs, about rewards, so reward value, redemption requirements, and time. So most studies deal with these variables. Another large amount about perceived value and benefits of as a mediating variable. So we can also see that relationship characteristics have been a lot investigated, and moderating variable, mainly the program type, has been investigated, or the program membership or relationship characteristics have been investigated. And as dependent variables, mostly firm performance has been investigated, program membership, so the effect of program adoption, redemption behavior, and mainly purchasing behaviors. So you can see here that some variables have not been investigated a lot. For example, you can see here customer tiers, the fact of gold, silver, platinum characteristics has not been investigated enough, but also the program adoption. As mediating variables, you can see that program membership has not been investigated a lot, so there's a gap to close. And you can see also here that general characteristics, cognition, and effect have not been investigated a lot. So there's a gap. And reward preferences and choices also have not been enough investigated. And finally, in terms of research methods, we can see here that most studies have been done with a quantitative approach, mostly experimental and correlational studies. Only few studies, namely 10%, have been done with a qualitative approach. So there's a gap to do more qualitative research, and so future studies should focus on more qualitative approaches. For the quantitative approach, you can see that mostly regression analysis was used, or other multivariate analysis of covariance, structural equation modeling. And we can see here that more sophisticated hierarchical linear models have not been done a lot. So there's place for meta-analysis, but also hierarchical cluster analysis has been fully investigated. So you can see here again that there are some gaps for methodological contributions. So if you want more information about the different articles about loyalty programs and big data management and firm performance, as well as the different studies about smart connected objects, smart home, and autonomous vehicle acceptance, you have the references in the PowerPoint presentation, and it is recommended to read them to see how we did the literature review and how we elaborated the research gaps on which we focused on in our research and in our publications. But in summary, these examples should show you that the gaps can only be identified by doing a complete literature review. So we have seen the different methods. So for example, the Tccm method, which is very systematic, by which you classify or you select only A, B journals, impact factor of 2 from the ABS ranking or the CNRS academic journal rankings. Once you have done that, you analyze the different theories which were used in the articles, the context, so in which sectors, countries such were done, which characteristics, so which variables, which independent, which mediating, which moderating, and which dependent variables have been used. Finally, which methods have been used, which qualitative and or quantitative methods have been used to analyze the data. Which brings you to summarizing tables in which you enumerate the articles by author, by year, in which you show the sample size, in which you show the context in which the study was done, or the countries or the sector in which the studies were done, the sample size, the analysis methods of research design, experimentation, or a survey or panel data, the main findings, the main limits, main weaknesses of the research, and the main research directions. And by doing this work, you will identify research gaps and research directions which bring you to formulate your research problems and research questions to which you want to give an answer in your research work.